I have the honor, distinct pleasure to bring on someone who I have known since the very beginning of her career because she started her career with me and she tells the whole world about it so we know the other folks know too. My dear friend Elaine Welteroth, who has, as a young woman, made so many strategic pivots in her career that have helped her to just rise and rise and rise. And I wanted to talk to her about the art of the pivot, so that we would all be able to get a look at someone who's been able to do this successfully and how you may too. So, Elaine Welteroth is an award winning journalist, New York Times bestselling author, producer, and judge on Bravo's Project Runway, which just started the new season. Her work appears in the New York Times, Time Magazine, British Vogue, Glamour, and The Hollywood Reporter, just to name a few. Please join me in welcoming Elaine Welteroth.
Hi, Harriet. Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
I'm so happy to see you. How are you?
Oh, I'm so great. I'm so great. And I'm so honored to be here. I thought Stephanie did such an incredible job talking about empathetic leadership. It was also the two of you on screen next to each other. You looked like twins.
Oh, that's so sweet. It's nice to have family, and you have become part of my family, so it's all good stuff.
You too.
This is a time, Elaine, when many people are choosing to make a pivot. Like
Yeah.
Stephanie said, 15 million people have quit their job in the past 6 months. That is such an incredibly huge number at a time when there's uncertainty, but 15 million people said, so what? I got to go. I need
Hmm.
to do something else. It is time to pivot. And I know that in order to be able to do that, you have to have a lot of courage and hopefully a plan. And I know in your case, you've made a number of strategic pivots in your career. Can you provide some insight into how you have made that decision?
Hmm. Well, yes, I actually think that times of uncertainty produce courage. And I think that when we are stripped of our false sense of control, and security, especially coming from external things, whether it be a job title and a job, or just circumstances that are outside of our control, I think it reminds us of what we can control. And and I think, I have experienced, yes, a lot of, well, first, what I'll say is I started my career in a state of of uncertainty, because I started my career in the Great Recession, and I
Yes.
remember people losing their jobs left and right, and working every single day alongside you like it could be my last.
Hmm.
And so I think that it it was a character building time that ultimately produced, a certain level of discernment around, okay, am I making the right decisions? You can't get too comfortable. You can't get caught on autopilot. And I learned that from you. And I also saw that a lot of people during that time, those who did lose their jobs, started businesses and went freelance. And so I tried to keep a mindset of, I welcome a sense of change. I try to approach change with a sense of adventure, and not fear. I try not to allow fear to paralyze me. But I think, I think you're one of the questions we might get to later is just like, how do you know when it is
That's
time?
absolutely.
Yeah, when it is time to pivot. And there is one question that someone shared with me, and I've kept it at the forefront of my mind, in all of my various pivots in my career. And that question is, have you reached the point of diminishing returns?
Mm.
And I I have, through going from Ebony to Glamour, Glamour to Teen Vogue, Teen Vogue beauty director to Teen Vogue editor in chief, and then Teen Vogue to the great beyond, building my own business, and writing a book, going into television. I really try to keep a pulse on before, we've all found ourselves in positions where we're frustrated with where we are, or where we're not fully fulfilled where we are. And I think it's so important to never leave a job or an opportunity before you've extracted all the value. Like, I think it's important to ask yourself, what am I here to learn? What am I here to contribute? And have I maximized that?
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is yes, then we can talk about the pivot, and we can talk about planning for the pivot. And we can talk about, building up your financial confidence to make that pivot. But I think that I don't think people spend enough time in that period of really doing that excavation, that deep dive, that soul searching work to figure out, is this the right time? Because I'll tell you, many times in my career, it was not the right time to leave.
I remember.
Yes,
like, no, hold on,
like,
not yet.
Today's the day. I'm walking out. I'm leaving. I'm going to the next thing. But it's really important. I mean, many times the answer came back from my spirit, and the answer was no. You have not maximized here yet. There's more to learn. There's more to prove. There's more to do. And I think it's important to leave on a high, and leave when you have something to carry into your next adventure. So I hope that question is something that's helpful for you guys, for whoever's here thinking about making a pivot. Really dig deep and spend time with that question.
When you say that, it reminds me of when I left Essence. I moved to New York to work for Essence, worked there for 11 years, had a wonderful career. Had years before had a dream that I had a business, but it sort of was yellowing on my refrigerator, this little piece of paper. But I remember, Elaine, one, friction. I think friction helps you to know that something's up, and it's time for a change. When you start feeling friction, you start pointing the finger at other people and blaming other people for something. Point the finger back at yourself and ask, what is my role in this? What can I do to change my course? Because it's not somebody else's fault if you're not happy where you are. For me, to your point, I had risen as high as I could rise. Susan Taylor was the editor in chief. She wasn't leaving. The next job for me was that job, and it was not going to be available. So it was like, okay, what do I do now? And I realized that this was when I should start my business, which I started in 1995, a really long time ago, when people thought I was crazy. My father's like, you're going to do what? You need to keep that job, girl. But, like, you have just started your business. My spirit said the time is now. Now, I did not simply leave. I had written a book. I had a contract for another book. And so I left with seeds already planted, and I think that's important for people to hear. And one other thing I think is important that I say all the time: endings are more important than beginnings. How you pivot is really important. A lot of people just stomp out the door because they don't want to do something anymore. But if you end gracefully, and you're not slamming a door, then those relationships may last forever. And I just think it's such an important time to be graceful, both at the beginning, at the end. We're good at the beginning. It's the first date. It's first day on the job. You look good and you sound good and you treat everybody well. You need to do that on the back end too. I think it's so incredibly important to do that. And so, Elaine, one of the things that you did and you talk about a lot is making your own table, that you were pushing to have a seat at various tables. We know, whether it is in fashion or beauty, and whether we like it or not, a lot of Black folks are still not welcome in those spaces. So really pushing to make a space, and then deciding, still as a very young woman, to make your own table. Can you talk about what that concept means?
Sure, but I did want to build on something that
Sure.
you shared with me early on. You said you will either get pushed or pulled into your destiny. To your point about friction,
Yes.
you will get pushed or pulled into your destiny. Either way, you will go. And I took that to heart, and I think that it's so important to pay attention to the signs, to pay attention to your intuition. I think sometimes people can become avoidant when they are approaching friction or conflict, inner conflict, or start to blame but I think it's important to read the tea leaves. And one of the things that I picked up in meditation, actually, that has helped me through my various career transitions, is this idea of when the music changes, so must your dance. And I think that speaks to the idea of becoming still, to be able to hear what that rhythm of life is, and when it is changing, and embrace when it is time to change your dance steps,
Yes.
to stay in flow. Because I think that sometimes we get so scared of change that we avoid the signs. We overstay our welcome. We wait too long. We start expiring where we are, and I think that the best position to be in when you're making a pivot is one where you're in the driver's seat, right? And you're not being pushed,
Absolutely.
but you're allowing yourself to be pulled into your destiny. So stay in the driver's seat and make sure that you are not operating on autopilot. And I think that's something that we kind of all need to be reminded of every once in a while. But
Agreed. Agreed.
um, so
And so, yeah, you're setting your own table. Tell me that,
yeah.
because I think folks need to understand that one.
Well, I think I mean, I didn't invent the term. I think it's a common term. We hear it a lot, this idea of building your own table. But I think that I realized that I was giving all my energy, time, and spirit to building enterprises that I was not always fully benefiting from. And I think you do that. You pay your dues. And I listen, I didn't expect to be in a position at such a young age that I had dreamed of being in since I was a little girl. I thought it was going to take me 30 years to accomplish the goal of becoming an editor-in-chief, but the world changed many times through my career, and it allowed me to kind of accelerate in my career faster than I expected. And I saw leadership within the corporate confines as an opportunity to build a different kind of table, and I'm very proud that I was able to do that. Seize the opportunity when you find yourself, in rooms that were not built for you, or in systems or spaces that were not built for you. Sometimes just first of all, being you is a radical act, being authentically who you are, but also recognizing the opportunity to open doors for others who have been systematically shut out for so long. And I found a lot of purpose and value, intrinsic value, in being able to do that and to build a different kind of table within this structure. But ultimately, when I got to the head of that table, I just realized in time that I'd done it, and I was ready to now build my own table, and outside of the confines of a corporate environment that did feel stifling for someone who looks like me, someone my age, and I had the trifecta of being the youngest, the only Black woman, and feeling, and just constantly feeling like I was swimming upstream. And I thought, this is a perfect time for me to translate all my skills and all of this experience into building my own table and inviting the kinds of people to the table that I want to help build my dream and my empire and my next thing. And I feel like, as an entrepreneur, as a creative entrepreneur, collaboration is so important. So I tried to make sure that I am keeping a really good balance of, showing up at other people's tables and helping them build, and taking opportunities that are in line with my values, and continuing to build with other people. But I do not lose sight of the importance of making sure that I'm investing in what it is that only I can build. And that's where I want to talk a little bit about this concept of zone of genius, because I think when we find ourselves in appointed positions, we are operating for the benefit of another entity, or and it's not necessarily drawing the best out of us. We're just doing a job, But I think when we can identify our zone of genius, which I define zone of genius as sort of the, you know, the intersection, that sweet spot between your skills, your passions, and your values, really. And so if you can identify what is that thing that no one can do quite like me, and what are the things that make me feel most alive, now how can I spend more of my life doing that? Can I incorporate that into the job that I already have, or do I want to start designing a career that looks a little bit different, that allows me to expand in my zone of genius? And if you're a leader within an organization, I think you should be spending time thinking about each and every person on your team and identifying their zone of genius, or helping them identify their zone of genius, to make sure that you're maximizing their value as well. And so when I talk about building your own table, or building my own table, it's important that I'm not just doing it for the sake of building my own thing. I'm trying to build something that only I can build, and that has a unique value add to the world, and that I was put here to do something that is rooted in purpose and mission. And so I think it's really important to get super clear on what that looks like, what that is for you. Before you begin, because the one thing I say, when I left Team Vogue, when I left the corporate structure of Condé Nast, I said, I don't want to build a company that I don't want to work for. So it's important to be very, very clear about the vision that you have for how you want to be spending your time and how you want to be spending your life. And it has to be rooted in a sense of purpose, and it has to be bigger than you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. We can't wait to see all the things that are at the table. We know there are lots there right now, but I know that there's more to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harriet.